Humanity's best weapon. Master Chief, huh?
After a well-received first trailer and the first Silver Debrief, a blog series on Halo waypoints surrounding the show, 343 Industries and Paramount have gifted Halo fans with another trailer for the Halo TV series. While the previous look was essentially just a sample platter of what the show has to offer, the latest trailer gives fans an idea of the story the show is planning to tell. Without further ado, let's begin. The trailer opens on a shot of an unknown human settlement coming under Covenant attack. This colony is home to a new character created for the series, Quan-Ah. Portrayed by actress Yirin Ha, Quan is described as shrewd and audacious. In the Halo universe, human space is divided into two primary sections, the inner colonies and the outer colonies. Inner colonies were the earliest planets colonized, often featuring more advanced technology and better quality of life. The outer colonies, where Quan-Ah lives, were founded during a later period of colonization and often by people who wanted to get some distance from Earth and the core of human civilization. This and other factors led to a widespread, if not entirely organized, disdain and resistance to Earth's central government and control. The trailer then shows us several shots of Master Chief, including one with him holding a plasma pistol and another with Chief ripping and wielding a machine gun turret. It's a simple moment, but one that surely left many a fan excited. After a massive explosion at the base of an unknown tower, an explosion that looks like it was Covenant-made, we cut to Quan-Ah and Master Chief in the mess hall of a human ship. Here, we get what may be our best look at Master Chief's Mjolnir armor, and it looks damn good up close. As the trailer continues and we see more Master Chief action, narration from Natasha McElhoney's Dr. Halsey, who is given a slight English accent in the series,
to win this war,
tells us that Chief was created to win this war, that he is upgradable and controllable. For anyone who might be confused, Master Chief and other Spartan 2s were kidnapped as young children and trained to be Spartans. Part of that training included brainwashing to make the Spartans fiercely loyal to the UNSC. The trailer seems to make it appear as though the Spartans are being controlled via technology, which is possible since the show is set in its own timeline rather than strictly following the established games and books. However, this may simply be the result of creative editing. Now that we have some background though, let's go over these shots of Master Chief. We start with a familiar shot from the show's teaser trailer. The scars seen here are the result of the radical and experimental procedures that Spartan 2s had to undergo. The next scene follows Master Chief as he emerges onto a battlefield. In front, we can see another Spartan carrying a large piece of equipment. This would appear to be Spartan Riz 028, whom we'll see more of later. Master Chief is meanwhile handed an assault rifle by a Marine, giving us our first close-up look at Marine armor for this series. The design seems to be a mix of several from across the series, though Halo Wars and Halo 3 seem to be the primary inspirations. As for the Marine himself, you can almost see the relief and awe on his face as Chief joins the fight. In the background, a Banshee can be seen flying by, and while hard to see clearly, it looks like this is a Type 26B model Banshee, first seen in Halo Reach. After that, we get some shots of the Spartans who will be fighting alongside Master Chief, being suited up like we saw back in Spartan Ops. We see Riz 028, played by Natasha Kolzak, Vanek 134, played by Bentley Kalu, and Kai 125, played by Kate Kennedy. Each Spartan has their own armor, all based on Master Chief's Gen 3 Mark 6 from Halo Infinite, though each customized to some degree. Vanek, the Spartan with an EOD helmet, sports the most customized armor set, featuring additional armor on the chest and unique shoulder pauldrons. Vanek is holding a DMR while Kai carries a sniper rifle, and Riz seems to be wielding only a pair of magnums. As some fans suspected, these Spartans do seem to be stand-ins for Blue Team, or Spartans Fred 104, Linda 058, and Kelly 087, who often worked with Master Chief directly and made their first in-game appearances in Halo 5. Fred was often the second in command, just like Vanek is meant to be in the series, and Linda was the resident sniper, just like Kai seems to be. And speaking of Kai, she has a rather interesting feature for a Spartan 2, dyed hair. Interestingly, the future Spartan 2, Kelly 087, used to dye her hair blue before she was conscripted into the Spartan program. Kai's color accent may be a reference to this detail. After a large shot of a human ship interior, we finally get to see the Covenant. The elites look like they were modeled after their appearance in Halo 2 Anniversary, though the armor sets seem to be entirely new. The armor looks to be largely gray and black, perhaps marking these as some form of special operations elites. The next shot gives us a look at a live-action warthog in motion, though the background might be the most interesting part of this scene. In the background, we can see the same structure from the start of the previous trailer. According to that Silver Debrief from Halo Waypoint, the planet is, quote, both familiar and alien to longtime fans. And we'll talk about this more in just a bit. The trailer then shows a series of scenes on the human settlement from the start of the trailer under attack, with Master Chief fighting back against Covenant forces. The Chief only barely manages to avoid this sword swing, his shields flaring up in response. Interestingly, the elites in this scene don't seem to have energy shields. Maybe they were dealt with prior to this scene, or perhaps, like some Spec Ops elites, these armor sets simply lack energy shields. The next shot shows Chief near the wreckage of a Covenant Phantom, having seemingly just taken it down. Following that, we get our first look at an intact Phantom, which we can see in more detail later in the trailer. As Master Chief reports about the Covenant excavating something, we get our first look at a Forerunner artifact in this series, a multifaceted triangular device. As Master Chief touches the device, the cavern lights up and symbols appear around the artifact. In this close-up, we can see the Reclaimer symbol, which denotes humans as the inheritors of the Forerunner legacy. Surrounding the symbol, we can spot several Forerunner glyphs and symbols, which can actually be translated. The inner circle reads scan, and though incomplete, the upper circle seems to read end. In other words, the artifact is scanning Master Chief to make sure he is a Reclaimer. The artifact in the TV show seems to be the equivalent to another artifact from the books, which eventually led to the discovery of Installation 04, with later scenes directly referencing the search for Halo. If this is indeed a stand-in for the Sigma Octantis 4 artifact from the books, this planet, described as both familiar and alien to longtime fans, could be Sigma Octantis 4 itself. In the core canon, Sigma Octantis 4 was a major battle, one of the rare UNSC victories at that point in the war, and the battle that saw Jacob Keyes promoted to captain. After touching the artifact, Master Chief notes that he felt different. Interestingly, whereas earlier lines sounded like they were coming from Chief's helmet speakers, this sounds like a natural voice, which might indicate we'll see scenes of Chief with his helmet off. As Chief speaks, we get two brief scenes. First, showing Chief's fist covered in blood and his armor looking fairly damaged. Maybe he just pulled something like what we saw in Halo 4, Forward Unto Dawn. The second scene shows Chief's hand shaking, perhaps a result of touching the artifact. We then cut to an interior shot of the rubble, the network of asteroids we saw in the last trailer, which will act as the base of operations for Soren 066, a rogue Spartan 2 who will be played by Bokeem Woodbine. In this scene, Soren seems to be talking to a fellow Spartan 2, perhaps Master Chief himself, about their shared past and what the UNSC did to them. As he does, we cut to what might be young Spartans in training, followed by what is almost certainly a young John, the future Master Chief. Originally only appearing in one short story, the TV show will be fleshing out and developing Soren to a greater degree. Later scenes even show the rogue Spartan in Mjolnir armor, something he never had the opportunity to do in the core canon. Soren was left physically deformed by the augmentation procedures all Spartan 2s underwent, never getting the chance to be a Spartan, so to speak. The next few scenes feature Quan Ah once more showing the Chief saving her and Quan asking why a Spartan would do that. In the books, the existence of Spartans was kept secret for decades before being partially revealed to boost morale. Still, even before being publicly acknowledged, Spartans became something akin to boogeymen to insurrectionists and those from the outer colonies. Spartans represent the UNSC and its control, so for a Spartan to help someone like Quan would be a surprise to her, even if it's perfectly in character for Master Chief. Following those scenes, we can see a Pelican taking off, number 325, the same one we saw flying over a city on Reach in the previous trailer. Based on the reaction of the troops on the ground, it seems this was an unexpected takeoff. A later scene in the trailer shows the same Pelican glowing with an intense light. Perhaps this Pelican held both Quan Ah and the Forerunner relic, and the relic did something unexpected. This may be what the Chief saved Quan from. The next scene shows Master Chief in what appears to be a Pelican, with Quan Ah screaming behind some glass, perhaps screaming about the Forerunner relic acting up. Strangely, as the scene plays, we get voiceover from an unknown UNSC fleet admiral talking to Dr. Halsey, asking, "What does one do with the superhuman you're not sure you can trust?" Even in the books, not every member of the UNSC were fans of Spartans, so while this could be hinting at something like Master Chief going AWOL, a la Halo 5, it could be that this admiral has some other reason to distrust the Chief. Alternatively, it could be this admiral is giving Halsey a heads up about others doubting the Spartans. In the books, Halsey had a few friends in UNSC command that would help her out now and then. None of them were fleet admirals, but with this being a different timeline, anything is possible. As we hit the 1 minute 17 seconds mark, we're introduced to the TV show's take on Cortana. This Cortana, while still retaining an overall blue hue, is much more human in appearance, in some ways closer to Serena from Halo Wars than Cortana from the games, and sporting an outfit more closely resembling the weapons from Halo Infinite. Originally slated to be voiced by Natasha McElhone as well, the role was later given to Jen Taylor, the original Cortana, due to the pandemic. While Jen Taylor's familiar voice will be welcoming to many Halo fans, the new design may prove divisive. Here, we see a Phantom dropping in behind UNSC lines, much to Kai-125's surprise. In the background, we can spot tent structures which may be the prefabricated memory plastic cubicle first described in Halo: The Flood, and later visualized in Halo: Fireteam Raven. We then get a look at a jackal, which more or less looks just like they did in Halo 3 or Halo Reach. This one is equipped with an energy dagger on its wrist, similar to Elite's in Halo Reach. The creature movement on the jackal looks fantastic in the brief glimpse we get. Following that, we have a group shot of Silver Team, the name for the Spartan team Master Chief will be serving with in the series. We then cut to our first scene in this trailer with Commander Miranda Keyes, as portrayed by Olive Gray, inspecting the artifact Chief found. While the game didn't do much with Miranda, the TV show reimagines the commander as not just a naval officer, but a scientist too. The daughter of Dr. Halsey and Captain Jacob Keyes, Miranda's estranged family will be a prominent part of the series. We then change to Miranda and Spartan Kai 125 looking over a computer which appears to be translating Covenant language. Kai then does a title drop, Sacred Ring Halo, before the trailer cuts to another scene with Dr. Halsey. A couple suits of Mjolnir armor can be spotted in the background, and Halsey has a look of anxiety on her face. Perhaps she just witnessed the Covenant glassing a planet. The next shot features our first look at Halo starships up close, with the UNSC Gladius-class heavy corvette in the foreground and a Covenant SDV-class corvette towering over it, really demonstrating the difference in scale between what the UNSC could produce and the power the Covenant had at their disposal. The scene then fades to Makee, a new human character who was raised in some capacity by the Covenant. Portrayed by actress Charlie Murphy, Makee shares the Covenant's beliefs and fights with them. Given the way the trailer is cut together, this might be the Covenant discovering and taking in Makee. Behind Makee, we get glimpses of the interior of High Charity, the Covenant's holy city. The Golden City that we saw during Halo 2 can be spotted in the background along the massive Forerunner key ship that once powered the station. Makee's clothes are rather interesting too, as we rarely get to see what passes for casual attire within the Covenant. We then get to see Makee standing before three prophets, likely the High Prophets Truth, Mercy, and Regret, with an elite standing nearby. The room seen here is unlike anything seen in the games, but it could be a reimagined Sanctum of the Hierarchs from Halo 2. The next few scenes show Makee working with the Covenant against humanity, telling them to surrender to the Covenant as Letgolo worms attack and hold down local human forces. Letgolo worms are more familiar to fans as hunters, which are actually mobile colonies of Letgolo. As the trailer approaches its end, we get a group shot of Silver Team and Master Chief, along with their Spartan numbers. We can see an insignia on the right breastplate of each Spartan, likely a team insignia like the one used by Blue Team in the core canon. During this scene, we hear Master Chief asking for Cortana's help. Naturally, the trailer closes on a couple of shots of Master Chief. The first shows him picking up a battle rifle with some supreme Spartan style. The second is a simple close-up of a blood and dirt-covered Chief, saying,
"Find the Halo, win the war."
Finally, the trailer ends with an air date of March 24th, a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. The lead up to Halo TV series has been a tumultuous one, but we're so close to seeing the final product now. From these trailers, it appears that 343 Industries and Paramount are pouring a lot of love into this show, and though it may deviate from the stories established by the games, books, and other media, this series is Halo through to its core. And for everything else about Halo, be sure to subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.